think it's too late.
Today, we're going to talk about poacher hunters. You'll get to know them, see how they work, learn the tricks they use to catch poachers, and much more. David Berry Jr. from Missouri hunted deer illegally for 3 years. Over this time, he killed hundreds of them, and it's not entirely clear whether David earned any good money on that. Whatever the case, the judge sentenced him to 1 year in jail with a special condition. The poacher had to watch Bambi every month.
Faster! Faster, Bambi!
Can you imagine that? Watching that scene with Bambi's mom again and again every month, 12 times in total. Though I gotta admit, this must work. Actually, the fight against poachers is a hard, dangerous, and totally unrewarding job, which also isn't paid that well, especially when it comes to African or Asian countries. For example, over the past 15 years, 160 park rangers have died protecting the Virunga National Park in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Over the past decade, about 1,000 rangers have died in the line of duty all over the world. Perhaps you, like me, didn't think too much about it, but poachers are often armed people who break the law and are ready to kill a person. They're just as dangerous as other criminals. Nowadays, increasingly, more rangers are getting killed through the fault of poachers, usually in the regions with elephants and rhinos. Rangers risk their lives every day because criminals can outnumber them 10 to 1. Rangers preserve wildlife at the cost of their own lives. Still, they get a ridiculously small paycheck. In 2018, a ranger from Uganda got $170 per month, subjecting himself to constant moral and physical stress, realizing you can die at any moment for $170 per month. That's just unthinkable. Meanwhile, a damn many animals need help and protection. Steve even found a depressing list of the species most highly prized by poachers. It includes polar bears, whale sharks, tigers, but the white rhinos are the most valuable animals on the black market. Their traded parts are worth more than gold. Sometimes it's 2.5 times more expensive than the precious metal. And poachers are well aware of how valuable white rhinos are. Why, in 2017, poachers even broke into the French Zoo in Thory near Paris, shot a 4-year-old white rhino, and sawed off its horn. This happened at night. And it seemed like the poachers were about to do the same with the rest of the rhinos, but something stopped them. Just imagine, sneaking into the zoo to get a damn horn? This is an actual robbery and murder. But the rhino horns are certainly very expensive. On the black market, 2 pounds of Asian rhino horn can fetch up to $400,000 US, and 2 pounds of African rhino horns cost $20,000 US. These are approximate prices, and they actually may be higher, although this is already a lot of money. Meanwhile, the population of the targeted animals is shrinking. They're guarded with the help of modern technologies. I'll talk about this later, but for now, one thing is clear. Poachers are ready to do all it takes to get what they're after, like murdering an animal at a zoo or raiding a museum. Thankfully, no one was hurt in the following story. In 2013, 3 thieves entered the National Museum Archives of Ireland, tied up a security guard, then loaded 4 rhino heads into a van and drove off. 4 heads, 8 horns. The total loot was worth $500,000. The most interesting thing is that this isn't the only story like that. In another case, robbers were going to steal rhino horns in 2012, though they were caught. You may already be wondering why people would need rhino horns in the first place, and are ready to pay so much for them. Well, horns don't serve decorative purposes only. They're also used in traditional medicine. Well, you know, those meds that supposedly cure any disease. In real life, the rhino horn only helps the rhino itself. Well, only when it's attached to the animal, but some people ignore common sense, though they can't ignore the side effects. To protect rhinos from poachers, they inject live rhino's horn with poison, which is completely harmless to the animal, but toxic to any person who swallows it. The poison causes nausea, abdominal pain, diarrhea, sometimes even convulsions. That is, it's not lethal, but very nasty. Enough to think twice before buying such a medicine product. What else can you do with the horn to make it less attractive to poachers? Dye it. Dye it pink. In fact, that poisonous liquid which is injected into the horns has a pink color. By the way, banks mark stolen banknotes using the same dye. The pink horn is completely useless as a decoration. Also, the dyed horn can't be smuggled. A scanner at the airport will detect the dye even if the horn is ground into a powder. This detectable poisonous horn is no longer of any value for poachers. Just in case, would-be poachers are informed about these measures through special signs on the fences of protected areas or through media campaigns. In areas where rhino horns were dyed pink, the animal death rate dropped sharply. Only 7 animals died over 5 years. This is a really impressive result, especially given that in South Africa, poachers kill 4 animals a day. Sometimes poachers kill animals so fast the rangers can't possibly stop them, but they can still catch the poachers. They get help from vultures. Well, the vultures aren't probably doing it on purpose. These birds simply fly to the dead elephants to grab a bite, but rangers use circling vultures to figure out where the poachers are. Though poachers know about this, to avoid getting caught, they began to poison the elephants' carcasses so that the circling birds wouldn't give away the location of the kill. One poisoned carcass can kill up to 600 vultures, and this, by the way, is also a serious blow to the population. Red-billed oxpeckers have a safer job. They only feed on various skin parasites of rhinos, and at the same time act as a free alarm. Rhinos have a good sense of smell but terrible vision, so approaching them from the downwind side is quite easy. The rhino won't even notice the danger, but the oxpecker will definitely see it and become agitated. Scientists conducted research and found that rhinos accompanied by birds detect people at a greater distance compared to rhinos without birds on them. Oxpeckers reduce humans' likelihood of rhino sighting by 40 to 50%, so if we introduce these birds to areas where rhinos are targeted by poachers, we can fix the situation. And how do you like service rats? You probably saw at least once how dogs are sniffing out illegal goods or something forbidden. Now imagine rats will be taught to do the same. Of course, not ordinary ones, but African giant pouched rats. They do the same duties as a dog, but they offer more opportunities. Even a large rat can climb into a hard-to-reach place and carry a camera on it. Hiding something illegal from a rat seems to be impossible. There is another way to fight poaching. Well, besides oxpeckers, rats, and poisoned horns, you have to make it unprofitable. To do this, scientists suggest flooding the market with fake rhino horns made from horsehair, silk-based glue, and cellulose. Despite the rather strange composition, the result is a material that feels and even looks like a real horn under a microscope. And if the whole market is flooded with fakes, this will cause confusion and a drop in prices. And it'll simply become unprofitable for poachers to continue poaching real horns. By the way, they use a similar strategy to save leopards. They give out faux leopard print capes to people of South African communities who wear real animal skins during all sorts of ceremonies. It's not yet clear whether the locals agree to such a replacement, but they don't seem to mind. And yes, we'd love to show you what those fake rhino horns look like, but there's one problem. They look exactly like the real deal. So this could be a fake horn. Or that. Well, when somebody tries to make a copy of something using a 3D printer, it's only a matter of time. They also tried to print fake rhino horns. Well, Steve and I couldn't find any information about the results, but 3D printing technologies came in handy when fighting other poachers. Turtle eggs are a fairly expensive product that's often smuggled and sold as a delicacy. It's pretty hard to track down the criminals unless you use fake eggs. 3D printed decoy eggs fitted with satellite tags have been placed in 101 sea turtle nests on Costa Rican beaches. A quarter of the fake eggs were stolen. Some of them were tracked all the way from the thief to the trafficker and from the trafficker to the consumer. And this is a really good result, because it's important not to only find the egg thieves, but also those involved in illegal trade. Technologies aren't standing still, and technologies for fighting poachers are no exception. Today, conservationists use all sorts of smart devices, like a rhino alarm. Okay, it's not installed on animals, it's actually an early warning system. When the poacher takes a shot, it's already too late. Yes, you can find and arrest him, but you can't resurrect a rhino. The system called Connected Conservation works in a different way, using Wi-Fi, thermal cameras, scanners, security cameras, and sensors, which work together to monitor the perimeter of the reserve. All information is fed to the command center, carefully analyzed, and then if some suspicious activity is detected near the animals, rangers are deployed there. This gives more time and more opportunities to catch poachers before they make a kill. The rangers used to respond within half an hour, but with the new system, they just need 7 minutes. The numbers speak for themselves. In the area where 70 rhinos were killed before the installation of connected conservation, not a single one was hurt after the installation. But if you think this super alarm system in the reserve is something incredible, then check out the system that predicts the kill. First, you need to feed it the data on past poaching incidents, time of day of the week, time of year, vegetation at that time, and rainfall. The information is processed, and then the system identifies potential poaching sites on any given day. At the same time, a smart computer generates perfect patrol routes. It also collects data on the poacher's previous activities and marks patrol routes depending on where poaching is likely to occur. While there's also facial recognition technology, when the camera detects that unknown people or vehicles are entering the reserve, it immediately alerts nearby rangers of a potential threat. In general, it helps anticipate danger. But the most interesting thing is that even with all these new systems, artificial intelligence, and other tech, so far, the most effective method of protecting rhinos from poachers is cutting off their horns. Well, no horns, no problem. No need for computers or sensors, and this is not just some theoretical reasoning. Namibia was the first country to use dehorning to protect rhinos from poaching. Between 1989 and the early 1990s, dehorning, coupled with all sorts of anti-poaching measures, gave simply amazing results. Not a single rhino was poached. In other regions, these statistics also look encouraging. In some areas, the survival rate of dehorned rhinos increased by 30%. In South Africa, of 33 rhinos killed between 2009 and 2011, only one was dehorned. All in all, it really works. Dehorning is certainly not the fastest or the safest procedure, but the result seems to be worth it. Okay, let's say the most reliable way is to cut off the horn of a rhino so that the animal becomes useless for poachers. But what does the rhino think about this? I mean, can the animal survive without it? Turns out, yes it can. Moreover, scientists don't quite understand why rhinos need horns from an evolutionary standpoint. Well, males use them to fight for territory and for females. Seems like dehorning wouldn't work for them. But still, even without horns, rhinos can easily fend off predators and perform other daily tasks. Plus, their horns grow back over time. But there is one little problem. When a rhino has its horn removed, it loses about 90 to 93% of its mass, depending on the sex. That is, the stub of the horn still remains. Yes, it's only 7 to 10% of the original length, but let me remind you, this is very expensive stuff. Poachers are ready to kill an animal even for such a petty loot. Sometimes they kill the animal by accident. It's hard to see if the rhino has a horn or not. And sometimes it's just revenge. And dehorning wouldn't change a thing here. I'm starting to feel like there isn't a 100% fail-safe way to prevent poaching. But the good news is that not all rhinos left without a horn by poachers are doomed. It's clear that the poachers don't really care about the health of the animal, but it's quite possible to save the rhino. To do this, vets apply a patch to its face, made from the elephant skin. I'm serious. They do use elephant skin as a band-aid for open wounds. Well, why not? It's quite elastic, but at the same time durable enough to withstand the urge of a rhino to rub a sore spot against all sorts of things. Of course, it'd be better if the rhino didn't have to go through all that, but unfortunately, it's impossible to save all animals from poachers. If you have to choose, the safest way to protect rhinos is probably dyeing their horns. It's a pity this doesn't work with the rest of the animals at risk. Elephants suffer as much from trafficking as rhinos, losing their tusks to poachers. Ivory's damn expensive, but simply painting tusks pink won't work. First, the elephant would not agree to that, and anesthesia may be too dangerous for the animal. Second, the tusks of an elephant don't have the same structure as the horn of a rhino. As a matter of fact, these are huge teeth, and you can't inject anything into them. Almost 1/3 of the tusk is embedded inside the skull. In addition, they grow by about an inch per year, which means that no amount of dye will protect the elephant for long. By the way, here's an interesting fact I came across when I was working on this video. The stockpile of illicit ivory in the United States is not sold, but destroyed. Wouldn't it be better to sell it and use the money to help animals, or raise the rangers' salaries? Especially since ivory can be more expensive than gold? You can't bring back killed animals anyway. But there is a certain logic here. Many conservationists argue that destroying illicit ivory sends a message to clients, sellers, and suppliers that it's not something worth trading in. So little by little, we can destroy the demand, at the same time saving the elephant population, because right now, well, things aren't great. In fact, if people continue to exterminate elephants with long tusks so persistently, then evolution will have to intervene and help the animals adapt. Actually, it already has. During the Civil War in Mozambique, which lasted from 1977 to 1992, about 90% of the elephants were killed for ivory. This proved to be such a serious blow to the population that nature realized that elephants without tusks are the only ones who survive. This means that the tusks had to be removed, so the offspring is more likely to persevere. The latest study shows that more than half of the females that survived this period are also tuskless, just like 32% of the females born after the war. Well, this mutation kills male elephants before they're even born. But from an evolutionary standpoint, those are acceptable losses. The important thing is that the species lives on. This situation isn't unique to Mozambique. People's activity makes many elephants reject tusks at the genetic level. Right away, just to be sure. So if in 100 years all elephants lose their tusks, don't be surprised. Because, well, let's be honest. Even with the most advanced tracking methods and all the measures people take, they can't protect all animals from poachers. It's physically impossible. Elephants and rhinos roam around freely, and poachers outnumber rangers. People learn of many tragedies only after they've happened. But sometimes, even a mortally wounded animal can survive and ask for help. In 2016, an elephant shot in the head by a poacher calmly came to the vets from Aware Trust Zimbabwe as if he'd booked an appointment. A 25-year-old male named Pretty Boy was injured but didn't show any signs of aggression. The elephant was tranquilized. They took an x-ray and found out the bullet was stuck in his skull. If it had hit a few inches lower, the brain would have been damaged. But Pretty Boy got lucky. Most likely, he lived with the bullet for up to 6 weeks. In short, he put off an appointment with the doctor for as long as he could. We get that. By the way, they decided to leave the bullet in the skull. They just cleaned the wound. The elephant, of course, got help. But what about the giraffe? This poor animal was trapped in a snare which was most likely intended for other prey. Its hoof was severely damaged, so much so that the animal needed urgent resuscitation. Yes, a huge animal whose average weight can exceed 2,200 pounds also sometimes needs chest compressions. And this procedure is not for the faint of heart because the rescuer has to literally pounce on the giraffe. Well, what options do you have in the middle of the savannah? And then I suddenly started wondering, what about the animals hunted by poachers but not protected as extensively as elephants and rhinos? They just have to deal with it on their own. And they can. Days after a poacher's trap killed a young mountain gorilla in Rwanda's Volcanoes National Park in 2012, researchers noticed something amazing. 2 4-year-old gorillas were working together to dismantle similar traps in the area. Usually it's the baby or teenage gorillas who end up in such traps. All the more surprising that young gorillas came to deal with them. The teen gorillas dismantled one trap, found another one, dismantled it too. They did a quick and efficient job, as if the animals knew exactly how dangerous these human contraptions were. It'd probably be nice to train more gorillas how to do that, but researchers believe that it'd be unethical to interfere in the lives of animals so much. I bet the gorillas would disagree with that. See you later.